Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
I had been putting off holiday shopping for weeks, mostly because I assumed stores would either be closed or running on limited hours during this time. My mother had been nagging me about getting some specific ingredients she needed for her traditional holiday recipes, and I couldn't delay it any longer. I had recently moved to this new city for work, and I was still getting used to how things operated here. I grabbed my 3 favorite reusable shopping bags, beautiful ones with intricate patterns that I had bought from an artisan market last summer. They cost me quite a bit more than regular grocery store bags, but the designs were worth every penny. They always brought a smile to my face, even during mundane grocery runs. To my surprise, when I arrived at the store, it was business as usual. The parking lot was packed and shoppers were bustling in and out with their carts. I felt a bit guilty about assuming the staff would get time off, but at least this meant I could get everything I needed in one trip. When I walked through the aisles, I realized I wouldn't need as much as I initially planned. My single bag would be more than enough for the few items I picked up. Still, I had all 3 bags with me in the cart. They were mine after all, and I'd use them for future shopping trips. At the checkout, I started placing my items on the conveyor belt, making sure to put the divider behind my groceries for the next customer. I placed my 3 bags on top of my items and began searching for my wallet and my purse. That's when I caught a flash of movement in my peripheral vision. I looked up to see a woman reaching over and grabbing 2 of my bags. Confused, I politely asked her to return my bags, explaining they were my personal property and not store bags. She responded dismissively, stating she knew they weren't store bags, pointing out that the store used red bags with their logo. When I questioned why she was taking my property, she rudely told me I didn't need all the bags, since my groceries would fit in just one. She then had the audacity to tell me to mind my own business and stop making a scene. I stood there dumbfounded by her entitled behavior. Before I could respond, both the cashier and an elderly customer jumped to my defense. The cashier threatened to call security if the woman didn't return my property immediately. The elderly customer scolded her for her behavior, pointing out how inappropriate it was to steal someone's belongings and then act like she was the one being inconvenienced. The woman tried to defend herself, asking why everyone was making such a fuss. The cashier demanded the immediate return of my bags, explaining that taking others' property was stealing, regardless of any justification. When the woman continued to resist, the cashier called for security. As security approached, the woman became more agitated. She continued insisting she deserved the bags more than me and that it wasn't stealing if I wasn't going to use them all. When security tried to escort her out, she attempted to slap me, but thankfully the security guard caught her arm just in time. The police arrived shortly after, and I didn't hesitate to press charges for attempted assault. When they led her away, she continued shouting about the unfairness of the situation and how we were all conspiring against her. The elderly customer shared a story about his daughter facing a similar entitled person at her workplace. The cashier apologized profusely for the incident, despite it not being her fault. The store manager insisted on providing me with a gift card as compensation. I was born with Marfan syndrome, which affects my connective tissues. On top of that, I have scoliosis that was partially fixed through surgery, though I can't bend over anymore, and arthritis in my legs. Yes, you can get arthritis in your 20s. It's not just an old person's thing. Walking more than a block is painful for me. I also have post-traumatic stress disorder from my school years, where I was nearly killed just for being disabled. Because of these conditions, I can't ride a regular bicycle. Instead, I rely on my mobility scooter, which I lovingly named Rosie because of her red paint. She's not your typical mobility scooter. She's more like an electric moped with 2 extra wheels. While she turns about as gracefully as a sledgehammer, she can go for 50 miles on a single charge and gets me to work in 10 to 20 minutes, depending on traffic. So here's what happened today. I was taking my usual route home through the local common. My scooter is legally allowed on both walkways and roads. When I turned onto one of the main paths, I spotted a cyclist coming down the hill about 60 feet ahead of me. He was on my side of the path, so I stopped to let him go around since there was nobody behind me. I started getting nervous when I saw him barreling towards me at full speed with no sign of slowing down. He finally slammed on his brakes at the last moment, and when I gave him the polite go-ahead gesture, he immediately threatened to knock me off my scooter if I didn't get out of his way. Not being one to take threats lightly, I pulled out my phone, put in my earbuds for better audio quality, and started recording. He noticed and commented on the fact that I was recording. I simply told him that yes, I was recording because he had just made a physical threat against me. I'll admit I wasn't exactly Miss Congeniality during our recorded interaction, but I don't show respect to people who try to intimidate me. We argued for about 5 minutes about the path conditions and his precious bike tires. He complained about his expensive tires and how he couldn't risk going over the grass. I responded by telling him that I didn't care about his tires and suggested that if they were so delicate that normal use would burst them, maybe he shouldn't be cycling at all. When I swore at him, he threatened to attack me on camera. That's when I realized this could take a while, so I pulled out my fully charged gaming device and started playing Fallout 3. This really seemed to tick him off, and he called the police. I shouted at him to make sure he mentioned his threats to me when talking to them. We kept arguing, and I called him an ableist jerk. That's when things got physical. He actually tried to shove me off my scooter and grabbed my phone. When I demanded my phone back, he seemed shocked to discover that I could walk. I had to explain to him that being on a scooter didn't mean I couldn't walk at all. I wasn't in a wheelchair. I was ready to show him why. Wearing glasses around someone who knows how to headbutt is a bad idea. But then a stranger approached. The cyclist was trying to delete my recording. Thankfully, I recovered it later since he was terrible with technology. My memory gets a bit fuzzy here because my adrenaline was pumping, but I'm pretty sure I shoved him off his bike, got my phone back, and yelled some choice words as he cycled away. The last thing I remember clearly is him getting back in my face, screaming, but then the stranger stepped in again and shoved him back, telling him to get lost before they called the police themselves. The cyclist finally left, but the story doesn't end there. I went to the police and pressed charges. Thanks to a public appeal, they identified him quickly. He's now facing charges for assault, theft, and hate crime due to targeting disabled individuals. I heard he also lost his job at a local bike shop when his employer saw the video. I was a student at a prestigious high school, and I was determined to succeed in my studies. I was a bright student who worked hard to achieve my goals. However, I had a difficult time in one of my classes because of my teacher, Karen. Karen was a strict and demanding woman who believed that she was superior to her students. She had been teaching at our high school for many years and had a reputation for being a perfectionist. She expected us to treat her with the utmost respect at all times and would get angry if we didn't meet her expectations. I had always found Karen's expectations to be unrealistic and her behavior to be unreasonable and volatile. She had a tendency to hold grudges and would often single out certain students for punishment or criticism. She was known for having outbursts of anger and lashing out at her students if they didn't meet her high standards. And despite her flaws, Karen was a skilled teacher and was well respected in the community. Many of her former students had gone on to succeed in their studies and careers, and she took pride in their achievements. However, her sense of entitlement and her lack of empathy for her students had caused her to become increasingly isolated and disliked by her colleagues and students. I had always tried to avoid Karen and stay out of her way, but one day she caught me talking to a group of my classmates during class. She immediately demanded to know what I thought I was doing, telling me that talking during class was not allowed. She ordered me to stand up and face the class as punishment. I stood up, feeling humiliated and embarrassed. I apologized to her and explained that I was just talking to my classmates about our homework, promising it wouldn't happen again. She warned me that it better not happen again, saying she expected complete silence and focus in her class. She then asked if I understood. I responded with fine and let out a slight sigh, my heart pounding in my chest. Karen asked me if I had just sighed and said fine to her, clearly angry at my response. She began yelling at me and berating me in front of the entire class. She demanded to know how I dared to disrespect her like this, reminding me that she was my teacher and insisting that I show her the respect she deserved. I tried apologizing again, explaining through tears that I hadn't meant to disrespect her and that I was just talking about homework. But she cut me off, saying she didn't want to hear my excuses. She called me a disrespectful and insolent student, telling me I would be punished accordingly. As the confrontation escalated, Karen lost control and ended up physically attacking me. She grabbed me by the hair and began hitting me repeatedly. The other students in the class were shocked and terrified by Karen's behavior, and they quickly called for help. My parents were called in by the principal. My mother was a strong and influential woman in our community. She had always been fiercely protective of me and my siblings, and she was not afraid to speak her mind or stand up for what she believed in. The principal invited Karen to his office to discuss the incident, and my mother accompanied me. Karen was unrepentant and seemed to think that she had done nothing wrong. She insisted that she had been provoked by my disrespectful behavior and that she had acted in self-defense. My mother confronted Karen. She asked how Karen could attack her daughter in front of her classmates and expect them to just brush it off, calling her actions reprehensible. Karen responded with a half-hearted apology, but then added that I had deserved it. At this point, my mother's eyes were blazing with fury. She raised her hand and slapped Karen across the face, the sound echoing through the office. She told Karen that she had caused me a great deal of pain and trauma, and that she wouldn't rest until Karen was held accountable for her actions. The principal tried to calm the situation, asking everyone to calm down and saying that violence wasn't the answer. My mother responded sarcastically, asking how they expected her to stay calm when this woman had attacked her daughter. She declared that she wouldn't stand for this kind of behavior in our school and demanded that Karen be arrested and charged with assault. The school administration immediately launched an investigation. Karen was suspended from her teaching duties and faced disciplinary action. The incident caused a great deal of outrage in the community, and Karen was eventually fired from her job. She was sentenced to probation and community service for her attack on me. However, my parents were not satisfied with the outcome of the criminal case and wanted to pursue a civil lawsuit against Karen. My father told me we needed to hold Karen accountable for what she had done. He said she couldn't just get away with attacking me like that, and that we needed to sue her for emotional damage and get me the help that I needed. I expressed uncertainty about this, saying I didn't want to ruin her life any more than we already had. I pointed out that she had already lost her job and her reputation, and questioned whether we really needed to go through with a lawsuit. My mother insisted that Karen needed to pay for what she had done. She argued that we couldn't just let her get away with this, saying it wasn't fair to me or to any other students who might fall victim to that kind of behavior from any other teacher out there. We ultimately decided to pursue the civil lawsuit. Not only did Karen have to pay a significant sum in damages, but the case gained widespread attention in the education community. As a result, our school district implemented stricter screening processes for teachers and mandatory anger management training. Karen's teaching license was permanently revoked, ensuring she could never teach again in any school. The incident became a catalyst for change in how schools handle teacher misconduct, and I felt satisfied knowing that my experience helped protect future students from similar abuse. I've been a driving instructor for almost 8 years now. Started right after college when I realized my business degree wasn't exactly opening the doors I'd hoped for. My cousin worked at a driving school and mentioned they were hiring. The pay was decent, and I figured it would be temporary while I looked for something in my field. Turns out I really enjoyed teaching teens how to drive. There's something satisfying about watching them go from nervous wrecks to confident drivers. The driving school I work for is pretty much the go-to place in our area. We're usually booked solid for months in advance. especially during summer when all the kids are out of school. Because of how packed our schedule is, we had to implement a strict cancellation policy. 48 hours notice or you pay a $25 fee. It's right there in the contract everyone signs. We're not trying to be jerks about it, but when someone no-shows, that's a slot we could have given to another student. So there I was on what seemed like a normal Tuesday afternoon. I had just finished a lesson with this really bright student who was about ready for her test. According to the schedule, I needed to pick up my next student and then drive the current one home. That's how we usually do it. It's efficient and saves time. I pulled up to the house and immediately noticed the fancy smart doorbell. You know, one of those with a camera and everything. My current student was waiting in the back seat while I went to get the new one. When I rang the bell, a teenage boy opened the door. I greeted him and asked to see his permit and paperwork. He told me he needed to grab them quickly and would be right back. Then he disappeared inside. I waited, and waited, and waited some more. 10 minutes went by and I was getting antsy because I had a responsibility to get my other student home. Her parents would definitely be worried if she was late. I rang the bell again. This time a voice came through the speaker asking if they could help me. I explained that I was there for their son, who had gone inside to get his paperwork and hadn't returned. The voice simply stated that no one was home. I stood there for a moment, staring at the doorbell. Through the window, I could clearly see the kid sitting on the couch playing video games. I told them through the doorbell that I'd leave our card and they'd need to reschedule through the office. I pulled out our standard "sorry we missed you" card, which clearly states the $25 fee applies as per the school contract, and stuck it to the door. When I walked back to my car, I could see him look out the window. The next day, the office called me about a very angry parent, demanding to know why they were being charged a fee when they were home the whole time. The office manager pulled up the doorbell footage I mentioned seeing, and sure enough, there was video evidence of the whole interaction. Not only did they have to pay the $25 fee, but they also lost their priority booking status, meaning they went to the bottom of our 3-month waiting list. The student who was waiting in my car, her dad turned out to be on the school board and filed a formal complaint about the family wasting educational resources. They had to take their son to a driving school 2 towns over because no local instructor would take them on. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.